Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi. Zevachim Daf Tzadi. We are holding 13 lines off the top of the Amud back to the question of sequence. How do we prioritize Karbanis when one is faced with a choice of this or that? Which one goes first? So the Mishnah gave us a whole rundown, a list. We have a factor called Tadir, right? The one that's more common, that goes first. Or when they're both on the same level in terms of frequency, then it's the Mekudesh, the one that's holier, the one that's a broader, higher level, more encompassing Karban, which will take priority. Okay, so the Mishnah says, Oifos koidmin l'menachos. If you're faced with a bird Karban versus a mincha, which one first? The oif comes first. Well, that's because the birds are considered minei damim. They're of the blood variety of karbanos, which is a broader, has a broader reach, many more variations. It's more atoning, perhaps. So it has that advantage. Well, says the Gemara, Adrab, if anything, go the other way. Give the advantage to the mincha. Menachos koidmos. Let the mincha go first. Why? There's an element of advantage, of superiority to a mincha over a bird. Shekain yeshnan betzibur kibiyachad, because in contrast to a bird Karban, which will never be offered by the public, by the tzibur. There's no concept of a tzibur bringing a bird, only animals. As opposed to menachos, Rashi brings two examples. We have at least two examples. Minchas ha'omer and shtei halechem, which are menachos brought by the tzibur. So give the mincha priority over the oif, because it has that advantage. Menachos koidmos shekain yeshna betzibur kibiyach applies to the tzibur just like to an individual, as opposed to a bird. Afiloch is still the damim factor present in the birds are considered, a higher, more powerful factor. Minei damim adifi. Minchas choite. Okay, you're faced with two menachos. Minchas choite, that a sinner brings to atone for a transgression. You have a donated mincha. Which one's first? Minchas choite comes first because it has the kapara element. Adarab, if anything, minchas nedava kademes. Let the nedava goes first. Shekain tuna shemen levina, because in contrast to the minchas choite, which is sort of a lean, dry Karban without any oil or levina, the nedava has those elements, so it's a broader package. It seems like it's a higher level mincha. Still minchas choite haba al chet adifa. Still, we prefer the minchas choite, which is addressing a chet, the mechaperes, because of the atonement capability that it has, which the nedava doesn't have. Ibaylu. That comes an interesting question. So we resolved that minchas choite versus nedava, choite is first because of the kapara. What if you have two menachos? One is a donated mincha, minchas nedava, and the other one is a minchas soita that an errant woman brings, and it's meant to confirm her status, to verify her situation. You have that versus the nedava. Which one goes first? Well, you can say the nedava goes first because it has the shemen and levina, which the minchas soita doesn't have. But you can say that the minchas soita is in a way similar to the minchas choite, although it's not directly a toni, but it's coming to, as the Gemara calls it, mevarer avoin, come to verify, to clarify her status regarding her potential, sin. Okay, so which one's first? Iboilu, minchas soita, minchas nedava, ezoi mehen kodemes. Which one's first? Minchas nedava kadma. Should we put the nedava ahead? Shekain tuna shemen levina, because it comes along with a bigger package, oil and incense. Spices. Or you can say minchas soita kadma. Perhaps the minchas soita stands higher. Shekain bar levar. It's coming to verify avain, whether she sinned or not. So it has that, atonement, so to speak. Sin-related property to it, which makes it similar to the minchas choite, which comes before the nedava. Tashma, it comes a raya. Minchas choite kodemes leminchas nedava. That's our Mishnah, right? Choite before nedava. So let's make an observation. Apparently, only minchas choite who the kadma minchas nedava. The choite comes before the nedava because the chayta is actually directly atoning for a chet. Ha minchas soita, why? But if it was a choice between soita and nedava, it wouldn't precede the nedava. Well, so the Gemara, not so quick. Miktani, does the Mishnah then actually say Ipnei shehi mechaperes? The reason why chayte comes before nedava is because of its atonement abilities, which would, set it apart, would distinguish it between itself and the soita, which doesn't have that. It doesn't say that. Ipnei shehi boal chet ketani. Mishnah says because the minchas chayte is addressing a sinful situation, v'hanami boal chet, and it also could relate to soita, which is also coming to address a sinful situation. So perhaps that too gives it priority over the nedava. We're not sure. Tashmai comes another right from a brisa, which compares two types of mincha without actually naming them. Okay, so it's A versus B, and the Mishnah and the brisa says, "Zu kademas lazu." A precedes B, "Shazu boa min achitin," because A is comprised of wheat flour, which is a higher, more elaborate carbon than barley flour. V'zu, but item B, ba'a min ha'sa'ir, comes from barley flour. My love, let's assume minchas nedava minchas soite, that the Bryce is comparing a donated mincha, which hails from flour of wheat, and that will come before the minchas soite, which is made of barley. There's your answer. Nedava before soite. Lo, no. Minchas choyte minchas soite. Actually, the Bryce is comparing choyte to soite. Totally new equation. And choyte comes before soite because this is wheat and this is barley. Well, says the Gemara, if that was the subject matter in the Bryce, then why would the Bryce have to submit to wheat and barley? Typically, it can simply state the original distinction that we had in the Mishnah. The machaperes, valim chaperes. The choyte comes first because it's machaper as opposed to the nedava. Velamai, so what are you suggesting? That in fact the Brisa is discussing a different equation, explaining why nedava comes before the soita. Reason being that this is wheat, this is barley. Well, Velamai minchas nedava, so you think the Brisa is discussing nedava versus soita, typically. So there too, the Brisa could have simply stated a more obvious distinction. Forget about wheat and barley. The zu tu una shem lavaina. Vuzu teina. Zuz eina tu una shem lavaina. Why did the Brisa delete that factor? That the nedava stands higher because it has the shem lavaina, accompaniment as opposed to the soita, which doesn't have that. Ella. So you have to say chad mitrei time yinakat. Chad mitrei time yinakat. Sometimes the Brisa doesn't spill it all out, present all factors on the table at once. You're right. It could have presented, both distinctive elements. Shem Lavaina versus no Shem Lavaina, Chitin versus Sa'ir. It chose, just to focus on one as a sampling. So likewise, the same money, the Brisa could be speaking about contrasting Chayta to Saita. And you're right, although the Brisa could have added more factors to the list. This is Machaper, this is not. The Brisa just chose a sampling, wheat and barley, but really there are other factors as well. So basically, we don't really have a conclusive shot on this brisa, and a conclusion on our shaila. So what we do know is a chayta precedes nedava. What we don't know is that what happens if you mix saita into the mix. Does the saita and the nedava? Which one is kaidem? Okay, now the Mishnah continues and says, regarding a choice of birds, you have a chatas bird and an oila bird, the chatas always comes first. Now, let's recall that yesterday we had a similar Gemara regarding putting the chatas behema before the chatas, before the oilas behema. We learned that from the pasuk by the Levium. And actually, interestingly, we had back in Daf Zayin, the Gemara did explain sort of a behind the scenes reason for this. Why does the chatas come before the oila? He says because the Gemara explains because it's like a person sinned. First, he has to sort of, surah meira, remove the sin. The chatas which atones for the which is machaper for the avera, and then you have your gift. Then the gift of goodwill follows the removal and addressing of the sin. So that's the appropriate order. First the chatas, then the oila. So we had the pasuk about Levium, teaching that the chatos behema comes before the oilas behema. Now we have a pasuk regarding birds as well. Chatos oif kedemes, the chatos bird comes before the oila bird. How do we know? Tan Rabban, we have a brayso v'ikravus asher chatos rishon. Okay, so regarding the birds, first goes the chatos bird. Matam Aloima, what's the pasuk teaching us? Shein tam Aloima lamed shetikor b'shayin. If it's coming to teach us, or im lamed, there's a gersa. If it's coming simply to teach us the basic order of things, that the chatos bird comes first. Harakvar already says that in the other pasuk. The second one's an oila. Obviously, the first one's a chatos. So why this repetition here with the words v'hikriv es asher lachatos rishon? Ella, rather, it's coming to teach us a precedent to be applied. So this formula, this order is applied in all chatos oila scenarios. Even if the chatos is merely a bird and the oila is a behema, you would think the behema comes first. No. When it comes to chatas and oila, the chatas is always number one. Ela zebana av. It's coming to give us sort of a father example, a general formula. Lechol chatois, all situations which involve a chatas, sheyigdim l'oila habois imoin, which come before the oila that accompanies them. Bain, in all variations, all combinations, whether it's chatas or oif, l'oila soif, bird versus bird, chatas is first. Bain chatas behema l'oilas behema, animal versus animal, chatas is first, as we learned back from the pasuk bar Levium. And the binyan av, the third punchline here, is regarding va'afilu chatas oif l'oilas behema. Even if it's a chatas bird versus an animal oila, the bird comes first. And the Gemara again spells out the three levels and their sources. Hilchach, therefore, chatas oif l'oilas oif, when it's chatas bird versus oila bird, that's learned from the pasuk that we just mentioned, meves hasheni chatas. So the second one is chatas, indicating the first one's an oila. That's when it's bird versus bird. What about chatas behema l'oilas behema? Chatas behema versus oilas behema. Midrabi Rachmana. That was yesterday's pasuk about Levium, which involved animals. And finally, even chatas oif l'oilas behema, chatas bird comes before the oila animal. That was from the extra pasuk today. Mizeh banav tashma. Here comes a kasha. You're telling me that in all situations, even if it's bird versus animal, chatas comes first. We have a kasha from a carbon that a yuledes, a woman who gives birth, brings. So, in her situation, it's very interesting. It's not your typical. Typically, when will a person bring birds as a pair, chatas and oila pair, when he can't afford a chatas behema? So he's meant to bring a chatas behema to atone for a sin. He can't afford it, so it gets sort of downgraded and converted into a pair of birds. One being a chatas, one being an oila. So in a way, that pair of birds, even though it entails and includes an oila, but you realize it's just an exchange for that chatas behema. So certainly you would understand the chatas comes first because it's really just another way of doing the chatas, right? Right? It's substituting for the chatas behema. Of course, the chatas bird comes first. No, not so by the Yoledis. In her case, the standard is a behema oila with a chatas bird. Right? Even if she's wealthy and she can afford it, she brings a behema oila and an oif lachatas. An aniyah, poor woman, would switch just one thing. Instead of bringing a oilas behema, right, the animal oila, she brings a oilas oif. Right? An oila bird. So just as if she would be holding at the higher level of the animal, she would bring the oila first, as the pasuk there indicates that the oilas behema comes before the chatas oif. Likewise, even if she downgrades and switches it over to a bird, it doesn't change things. The chatas doesn't leapfrog, doesn't get ahead of the oila. And that's what Reb Lezer is coming to explain for us. Why is this different than your standard chatas and oila pair, where the chatas goes first? Tashma, Reb Lezer Omer, Kol Malkim. Typically, in a typical case, sheneschal for chatas, when the fellow is meant to bring a chatas behim, and it gets switched over to a bird, or I should say to a pair of birds, one being chatas, one being oila. So you can fully understand chatas kademas. in terms of sequence, the chatas bird comes first, because after all, it's pretty much substituting for a chatas behema, which also would come first. V'kan, as opposed to here by the yoledes, oila kodemes. No, here the oila bird comes first. Just as if it were to be an animal, it would come first. That's the first reason, of a total of 3 reasons. Reason number 2, kol makom shebal chet chatas kodemes. V'kan oila kodemes. Typically, the chatas is coming to address a sin. So the chatas comes first, but over here it's not so. The chatas is not really addressing a sin that she committed. It's coming to assist her in her, purification process. So here the oil comes first. Thirdly, typically, when one turns into 2, so the chatas behema, which a wealthy man is supposed to bring, sort of gets converted into a pair of birds, one being chatas, one being oil. So it's very clear that the chatas behema is a powerful carbon. In fact, it sort of gets switched into 2. One turns into 2. That indicates its importance, its prominence. So although you're landing with a pair of birds, one being chatas, one being oila, the chatas still maintains that superiority and it goes first. The kind of oila kademas, as opposed to the yoledes, where it's not like the chatas is generating 2 birds. Initially, she should have brought a chatas oif, and she's still bringing only 1 chatas oif. The reason why she's bringing a second bird, that's the substitute for the oilas behema. So you don't see that superiority in the chatas, and the oila comes first. Bottom line is, this sort of contravenes what we said earlier, that in all situations, in all configurations, the chatas always goes first. Why is it different? Taisus learns, because in the psukim describing the karbanos, the Torah indicates first the oila, then the chatas, to tell you that's the way it's meant to be offered. So this is an exceptional case. Tashmai comes another kasha. We have a Mishnah actually. The Brisa. So Brisa says like this: if you have all types of potential karban, you have the cows, the rams, the sheep, and the goats. Which one does the kohen do first? Parim koidmin la'elim, cows before rams. Ve'elim koidim l'kvasim, rams before sheep. Kvasim l's'irim, sheep before goats. Now, what are we speaking about? What day in the year is this? My love, we're assuming the Chag. It's on Yom Tov of Sukkot. We have so many different types of karbanis, and Rashi explains that actually on Sukkot the kvasim are going to be oila, the seirim are going to be chatas, and still the Brisa tells us what goes first: the kvasim before the seirim, the oila before the chatas. No, we're not talking about Yom Tov l'nadav. We're talking about a regular day in the Beis Hamikdash. Lots of donated, karbanos, all coming as a carbon oila. So they're all pretty much on the same, plane in terms of the chatas oila configuration, or oila, all the same type. So then we prioritize the bigger animals and give them precedence over the small animals. Param kaidmin la'elim. Why? Shekein esrabah b'nesachim, because the par comes along with a larger dose of nesachim, of wine, of oil. V'chein elim kvasim, for the same reason the elim precede the kvasim, because of their greater nesachim. Why kvasim before l'seirim? Shekein esrabah ba'aliyah, because a keves typically has an added element of hakrava, the tail area, that puts it above the so'ir, which doesn't have it. Tashma, here comes another kasha on this general principle that chatas always precedes the oila, tashma. So we have a brisa. We're in the Beis Hamikdash, and we have a choice of 2 karbanos right now. Par kohen Mashiach, the chatas that the kohen gadol brings upon sinning. That goes before koidem lepar helam davashal tzibur, to the par that the public will bring upon sinning. Likewise, the par helam davashal tzibur koidem, that precedes lepar v'yitzchacham, the par that the tzibur would bring, for erroneously sinning with avodah zarah, which happens to be an oila. Okay, so far so good. But here comes the kasha. That carbon which is an oila koidim, that comes before to the goat that the tzibur will bring for doing avodah zarah. They have to bring 2 karbanos, par oila and sar lechatas. And the question is why? The par is oila. The par of the avodah zarah is an oila. Why does that come before the chatas? Usir avodas gecham is a chatas. Well, says more okay, that's a good question, but why don't you support me from the first part of the brayse, which puts the chatas before the oila? So although this is a kasha, that's going to be a raya to me. Parallel davar shel tzibur, which is a chatas, koydem lepar, avodas gecham, which is an oila. Well, says the Gemara, that's not really up for discussion. I never had a question. It was clear to me that when the chatas and oila of the same variety, the same type of animal, like over here it bowls cows, of course, I wouldn't suggest that the chatas should not come before the oila. Of course it does. That's pretty simple. The chatas kadma. My challenge, my question related to uneven karbanis. When the you're telling me that a chatas ha'oyif comes before the oilas behema, despite its disparity in size and prominence, and here we see otherwise. Here we seem to see otherwise, because the brayse is sequencing the par avodah zara before the soyer avodah zara, even though the soyer is a chatas. Why does it come second? Apparently because it's a smaller animal. So you see, size does play a role in determining sequence. B'trei mina. Keep coming with Tremini. I was discussing two different, sizes. Ashkan oila de kadmul chatas. So in this brayse we see clearly the oila, because of its greater size, comes before the chatas. That's a kasha on you, who discounts that size factor. Ami marava. So in Eretz Yisrael they answered between the Rava bar Mari. Typically the oila is always number 2. Here it's different. Chatas avodas gecham chaser aleph lechatas. Take a look at the close look at the spelling of the wording in the psukim regarding the par and sur avodah zara. It spells the word chatas without an aleph, which is untypical, to tell you that it's different than the regular chatas. It comes as number 2. Rabbi Amar, another teretz, he says, "Kemishpat ksivu." The pasuk uses the word kemishpat in describing the sequence of these two karbanos to tell you as is. The way it's delineated in the psukim is an exceptional case. Chatas follows the oila. Okay, once you discover this observation, that in fact the word kemishpat indicates exactness of sequence, even though it's not, typical. I feel we can now readdress that earlier brayse which discussed parim, elim, and kvasim, and seirim. We thought it was the Yom Tov of Sukkot, and that ran us into trouble. Yeah, even if it's Sukkot. And the kvasim are oila, they will come before the seirim. Why? Kemishpatim ksivu, because the pasuk uses the word kemishpatim to indicate as is. Follow this precise sequence, and in the pasuk you have it listed in that way: parim, le'elim, v'lekvasim, b'misparim, kemishpatim, to tell you that in fact the kvasim come before the seirim. Okay, so in a nutshell, in general, chatas before the oila, whether it's bird, animal, even bird-animal. We have some exceptions by the Pasar avodah zara, perhaps on Sukkot as well. Now comes an interesting question. Here comes a shayla. So let's take the known clear factors and put it on the table, and then we'll sort of explore a cross-factor type of equation, try to figure out what to do. You have a chatas oif, v'oilas behema umaser. Ezim and koydem. Which one goes first? So we do know that a chatas oif always comes before the oila, even oilas behema, as discussed. We also know, we learned this in the Mishnah, that oilas behema comes before maser behema. Right? The oila is kachim, it's kolil, fully burnt on the mizbeach. So chatas versus oila, chatas comes first. Oila versus maser behema, oila comes first. What if you have all three together? You have the chatas oif, the oilas behema, so the chatas goes first. You also have the maser behema. So in a sense here, the oila comes before the maser. But if you put the oila before the maser, well, the chatas will have to come before the oila. Okay, so put the chatas before the oila. Problem is, here's the third leg of the equation. Maser behema, which is an animal carbon, comes before the chatas oif, which is merely a bird carbon. So you're sort of going around in circles. The chatas before the oila, yeah. The oila before the maser, yeah. But then the maser comes before the chatas. So where do you start? Where do you end? Ibailu. Chatas oif, right? That's the first. Voilas behema the second. Umaser the third. Ezim and koydem, which one goes first? Shall we say tiktum chatas oif? Put the chatas oif first. No, the maser precedes that. Ika maser the kadem le. Okay, put the maser first. Lig the maser. Well, no. the oila is catching its tail. Ika oilas behema, the kalban comes before the master. Okay, so put the oila first. No, he has the chatas behind him, trying to catch up and get ahead. Tiktum oilas behema, put the oilas behema first. Ika chatas oif, the chatas oif goes first. So it's a perpetual, endless equation. What do we do? So you have two possible solutions. The one presented in Bavel and the one in Eretz Yisrael. Here in Bavel Targimu, they resolved as follows. Min Zevach Adif. That's it. The Maser Behema, which is a Min Zevach, which is a slaughtered animal, that's a Maila over the other Mailas, and that goes first. Right? You can't put it second. You can't put it last. So it has to go first. And once that goes first, certainly what follows is the chatas, and then comes the oila. Right? Because certainly you can't put the oilas behema before the chatas oif, because that's the pasuk, because there's a kasef. So once you started with the maser behema, certainly you proceed with the chatas to the oila. Okay, because min zevach adif. The fact that the maser is a behema, that certainly goes before the chatas, which is only a bird. Okay, Marav Amri, Eretz Yisrael, they solved as follows. No, they held that the chatas oif goes first, and then comes the oila and then the maser. Why? Because although the chatas on its own is not deemed superior to the maser behema, just the opposite, right? But since the chatas stands higher than the oila, and the oila stands higher than the maser behema, so the oila sort of elevates, it injects an element of superiority to the chatas, which now allows it and enables it to supersede even the maser behema. Right? It empowers it to get on top. Marava Amri, oilas behema b'chatas oif, the oilas behema injected a power, an element of superiority. It upgraded the chatas oif above everything. Vagbata, and it lifted it above the maser. Vagbata maser. So now, chatas oif comes first, followed by oilas behema, and finally the maser behema. Interesting. Says the Mishnah. What about chatas versus asham? Kol hachatoy shebetorah koid mes la'ashamis. Okay, as we learned back in the Peites, chatas always precedes the asham. And the reason was because the chatas has a more extensive blood, application on all the four corners, etc. Chutz ma'asham etzorah, there's an exception, asham etzorah, which will come first, because in contrast to a regular asham, which is coming to atone, the asham that a mitzvah brings at the end of his process is coming to be machshir him, to enable him for eating kachim. It's more sort of a more powerful korban. It's more chashiv. It's entire the mitzvah, and that will take first place. Another point regarding the various types of ashams, there are differences in terms of the halachis. Kol asham shebetorah, your typical asham in the Torah, boy and beishtayim. How old is it meant to be? Neishtayim. Neishtayim means within the second year of its birth. Uboim because shkolim is meant to cost you 2 shkolim. So there's that minimum, value requirement. Chutz masham nazir, asham mitzvah. Except for these two, which have a different system. Shein boim neishasan. They're meant to come within a year of birth. Vein boim because shkolim. It's not meant to cost you. There's no minimum, value on that. It says the Mishnah, Kashem shekodim bakravasan. Just as we provided a priority list regarding being makriv karbanis, koidmin bachilos, likewise in terms of consuming the karbanis. So let's say you have basar of this and basar of that. The priority is given to the carbon on the higher level. Okay, so the one that's more tadir, the one that's more mekudesh comes before the other one. And it's very well understood because the achila of a carbon is parcel of its akrava, of its kapara. So that's sort of a completion of its process, and therefore, it's tied to the factors discussed up until now. Continues the Mishnah with another factor of kedima, of sequencing. Shlamim shalemesh, ushlamim shalayim. Okay, so it's Monday, and turns out that yesterday on Sunday there was a shlamim that was delivered to the Beis HaMikdash, but not yet taken care of. You have a shlamim that arrived today. Which one is going to be addressed first? Shalemesh koydin, the one from yesterday comes first. L'shalyayim, over today's. because he came first, and it's only right, it's only kavod to dress him first. What about the shlam shel emesh kodem shel hayom? What about shlam shel emesh chatas va'asham shel hayom? Oh, this is interesting. Yesterday we have a shlamim, and today we have a chatas va'asham. And now they're both here. Shlamim shel emesh kodem. The Rebbe holds you first process yesterday's shlamim for the same reason, despite chatas v'asham being on a higher level. Doesn't matter, because Rashi says it's a zilzal. It's degrading to let the yesterday's carbon wait so long. It came first. First come, first serve. In this case, Chachamim disagree. Chachamim, the chatas factor takes precedence. Chatas kedemes, because it's kachir kachim, which the shlamim isn't. Concludes the Mishnah. How does a kohen meant to consume karbanos? Is there any specific rules in terms of style, in terms of recipe? No. He can choose the recipe and style of his choosing. The kulan regarding all the achilos of all karbanos. Hakanim rashayin l'shanis b'achilos, and the kanim could choose to apply any manner of eating. L'achlan sluyin, to eat them barbecued or shlukin, heavily cooked, and mivushalin, lightly cooked. V'lasas l'sechan tavli chulin v'tavli truma. The Reb Shimon holds you can put in all kinds of seasoning, chulin or even truma. Reb Meir Omer, no, lo yitin l'sechan tavli truma. Don't put truma into the basar kachim, shelo yaviyah truma, they psul, because it could endanger, it could risk the truma material and make it possible prematurely, because truma has no deadline in terms of consumption, and if you put it into the basar of the kodesh, which has a very short specific zman achila, suppose it gets left over, everything becomes possible, including the truma element within it, so you're sort of causing a premature disqualification of that truma. You shouldn't take that risk. Okay, so let's just summarize. We discussed the Oifa is coming before Menachos, Minchas Chayte before Minchas Nedava. Regarding Saita, we weren't sure. We discussed the Chatas before the Oila in all variations, except for some exceptions. We discussed an interesting equation, Chatas, Oila, and Meiser, which way to go. We discussed the Chatas versus the Asham, different types of Asham, prioritization regarding consumption, and giving the Kohanim a free hand in terms of how to consume their karbanos. All the best to you, and Atzlacha Rabbah.